really feel that I've helped contribute to advancing this cause of dealing with entitlements in a serious way. And here's the irony of it all. I really think we can make these entitlements better. I think these entitlement programs, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, they can work better for future seniors, and we can get this debt under control. But we have to reform these programs. We have not had bipartisan consensus on how to do that. We were able to get a bill with a party line vote only out of the House to do it just this year. And I wish we could have passed that into law because I thought it would have made a great difference. But nevertheless, I'm proud of the fact that we've advanced these issues. These issues aren't going away, and I think we are closer to a consensus than where we were just a couple of years ago when we started talking about these issues.
I have two more questions, and then I know you have to go. One is, maybe it's a little early for you to be retrospective and looking back at your career in Congress, but can you think of what your best moment in Congress was and what your worst moment was?
Worst moment, losing the majority in 06 was a pretty ugly time when we lost that majority. Losing the 2012 election was a pretty tough moment for me. I was on the ticket with Mitt, as you know. Those were tough moments. I think getting tax reform done was one of the best moments. That's something I've been working on for over 20 years. Ever since I worked for Jack Kemp, I've been working on tax reform. I think it's critical to laying a strong foundation of economic growth. I think there are a lot of things in this tax bill that help advance our poverty fighting agenda, like enterprise zones, social impact bonds. There's a lot of things here that a lot of Americans don't even know about yet that I'm really proud about. And I'm excited about advancing some issues I really care about. And that's really what I'm most proud about.
And lastly, I find it hard to believe that January will be the last time you're on the political scene. I find it hard to believe that you won't run for Senate or governor or president someday. You're shaking your head. You don't think there's no chance you're going to re-enter politics down the road?
Well, not while my kids are growing up, and obviously not in the near future. I really don't see that. I really thought when I took this job, Jake, that this is probably the last elected office I would have. I'm not going to run for president. You know, that's not my plan. I'm not going to do that. I really want to spend time doing the things that I've just discussed doing. I'm always going to advocate for the causes I have. But right now, the last thing I'm thinking about is running for something.
Well, I believe that, but we'll see. I'm gonna believe that we'll see, because your kids are teenagers. They're going to be out of the house soon enough. That's why you're going home, right? Mm-hmm. All right.
No plans to run for anything, and I really don't think I'll change my mind. But thanks, Jake. Appreciate it.
Okay. House Speaker Paul Ryan, thank you so much for your time, and best to your family. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders is holding the briefing. Let's listen in.
We hope that that will change.
What about an enemy, though? Are they an enemy, though, of America at this point?
That's something that Russia needs to play a role in determining. We hope that they will continue, or not continue, I'm sorry, to be a bad actor and make some changes in their behavior. But that's something that Russia will have to play a role in determining. Sorry, Francesca, I'm going to keep going. April?
Sarah, as you say, all options are on the table when it comes to Syria and Russia. Has diplomacy been exhausted? That's an option as well.
As I said, all options are on the table.
So it has not, are you saying that?
Again, all options are on the table. That contains a number of different things.
Could still be in play.
It could be, but there are a lot of other options that are also on the table.
Four senators, 2 Dems, 2 Republicans have a bill to ensure that a special counsel isn't fired for political reasons. Does the White House support that bill? Does the White House think a bill like that is necessary?
We don't have an administrative policy on that right now. John?
Yep. Thank you, Sarah. 2 questions. On Monday, I asked you if the President had contacted President Macron and Prime Minister May about an alliance with France and England, not unlike that President Obama tried to forge in 2013. He has had 2 conversations with both of them. Have there been any new developments? I mean, has he spoken with any other world leaders, especially those in Central Europe, about a larger coalition instead of the U.S. going it alone in Syria?
Yeah, we've had regular contact with regional allies and partners, including Israel, Saudi Arabia, France, and the UK, as well as a number of other countries at various levels. We've provided readouts of the conversations the president has directly had, but both the National Security Advisor, as well as the Secretary of Defense, the Acting Secretary of State, and a number of others within the administration have had regular contact with their counterparts from a number of other countries.
And the other thing I wanted to ask, the President has a good relationship with Congressman Scalise, a good personal relationship with his family. What does he think about the reports that Congressman Scalise will run for Speaker soon?
The president has a great relationship with a number of members in the House of Representatives who support his agenda, and he looks forward to working with all of them over the course of the next 7 years, I guess. My math's not great, Tamara.
Yeah, is the president considering firing or in other ways pushing out Rosenstein?
I don't have any personnel announcements at this front.
And
Steve?
just one other thing, Paul Ryan today said that he's been given assurances by the White House that the president isn't planning to fire Rosenstein or Mueller. Do you know where he's getting those assurances? Is it coming from the president? Is it coming from others? Where is it coming from?
Again, I don't have any announcements on that front. Steve?
Sarah, Senator Markey, who's a member of the Foreign Relations Committee, said today that the president must come to Congress for authorization prior to another military strike on Syria, and there are others who are also saying that. Does the administration intend to do that, and if not, why not?
Obviously, the administration will follow whatever laws and regulations are necessary for any actions that we take. Because we haven't laid out any specific actions that we plan to take, I can't tell you exactly what needs we would have to go to Congress with. Jim?
It sounds like the president hasn't really left a lot of wiggle room. You said that all options are on the table, but when the president says, get ready, Russia, they will be coming, the missiles are coming, how is that anything but an announcement of a pending airstrike?
That's certainly one option, but that doesn't mean it's the only option or the only thing that the president may or may not do. Just because he does one thing doesn't mean he can't do a number of other actions as well.
And
he certainly hasn't laid out the timetable, which would be broadcasting his intentions.
One other quick thing on Speaker Ryan's announcement. There are some fears up on Capitol Hill, and we understand some in the White House, that a Democratic wave is coming. It could sweep the Republicans out of power in the House, and that could potentially lead to impeachment proceedings that the Democrats could bring forward. What is the president's thinking on that? What is your thinking on that?
Like I said earlier, we are very confident in the record that we have and the very successful first year and a half that the president's had in office, and we expect to talk about that a lot. We'd love for you guys to talk about that a lot more too, and we'd be happy to send you some talking points if you need some guidance on that front.
Do you think a wave is coming?
We certainly think we have a great story to tell, and we think America will be ready to listen to that, and certainly has, I think, felt the impact, certainly from an economic standpoint, for this administration, and we're proud of that. We'll take one last question right here, Andrew.
Just to follow up on Jeff and April's question, is there anything that Syria or Russia could do at this point to avoid military action?
Again, I'm not going to get ahead of anything, but certainly, like I've said a few times today, all options are on the table, and we'll continue conversations with our allies and partners and move forward from that point. Thanks so much, guys. Have a great day.
All right, you've been listening to the White House press briefing. The White House saying that all options remain on the table concerning Syria, and saying that President Trump has, quote, deep concern about the direction of the Mueller investigation. Let me get back to my political panel. Mary Catherine, we didn't get to your thoughts on this. Your thoughts on the raid of Michael Cohen's office, hotel room, and house. And apparently they're looking for information about Stormy Daniels, about Karen McDougal, and about the Access Hollywood tape.
Yeah, I think the Access Hollywood part of this is very interesting. I am puzzled as to what the alleged underlying federal crime is, but I am mindful of the fact that you have to hit a bunch of really high bars, and that there had to be sort of a consultation between DOJ, Trump's DOJ, and New York to make this happen. However, if we are in a position, or if we end up in a position where an FEC violation is what caused the sacking and raiding of an attorney's office who's the president's attorney, despite the fact that the New York Times editorial page decided today that attorney-client privilege isn't really that important if you're innocent, it is really important, and I do think that that would be not a great development. So I'm hopeful that there's something larger there.
Now, the standard, the rules and regulations for a U.S. attorney, and you know this better than I because you're an attorney, state that on this show. State that it can be done, a raid on an attorney's office, if there is evidence that the person is going to destroy evidence, right, or there's evidence that there's no way that you can get that information, including with a subpoena, without raiding the office. It's a fairly high bar. but presumably the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York or the Assistant U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York got that permission from a magistrate.
Yeah, sure. And I still remain incredulous that they couldn't get it from some other source. I think, if there's banking involved, you go to the bank. There's another party involved in this other than Mr. Cohen, presumably. You go to that source first. That's what I'm saying. I think what Mary Catherine says is exactly correct. The attorney-client privilege is kind of sacrosanct here. There is the crime fraud exception, which has been debated and talked about on this network exhaustively. That the only time you get to pierce that attorney-client privilege is if there was a crime committed, and so this is some pretty high bar stuff, and we'll have to see. But it is an extraordinary step to be taken for sure.
And Jen, I mean, one of the things that and obviously this is all speculation since we don't know anything, but the question is if Michael Cohen the accusation has been made, if he spent $130,000 to keep Stormy Daniels quiet about her alleged affair with President Trump and didn't report that to the Federal Election Commission, that's an election violation, that's an FEC violation. Theoretically, any payment that he made and didn't declare as an in-kind contribution to the Trump campaign would also be an FEC violation, including theoretically any payment to suppress an Access Hollywood tape or anything else.
Sure, and this goes back to the fact that it is speculation and we have drips of the reporting of what the purpose or what they got justification for, but we don't fully know. Guessing from what's happened over the past couple of months, we will know more soon, just because a lot of it seems to come out. But it is confusing, like in the bits and pieces, as to why that would have been the justification. But as we've all agreed on, there's very high bar to getting to being able to get a search warrant, and so clearly there is probably more there.
I want you to take a listen, Mary Catherine, to what Sarah Sanders, the White House press secretary, just said a few minutes ago about special counsel Robert Mueller. Take a listen.
The president certainly has been clear that he has a very deep concern about the direction that the special counsel and other investigations have taken. This investigation started off as Russia collusion, of which there was none. That has been very clear that nothing has come up over the last year, and the president has spoken at length on this topic. While the media continues to focus on this, despite the fact that there's been no evidence after a year, we're going to continue to stay focused on the issues.
Some Democrats say there actually is evidence of collusion. There is evidence of cooperation. You have very clearly the Russians get incriminating information about Hillary Clinton illegally. They offer it to the Trump campaign. The Trump campaign expresses interest in it. Bravo, voila. I mean, it shows up on WikiLeaks.
Oh, yeah, I also think that Trump Jr. meeting is the most damning thing we've seen. There is not the big smoking gun of a giant global conspiracy, and I remain skeptical that exists. But look, what she's doing there is the same thing that's been going on for several months, which is a little bit of teasing of the idea that, well, we don't like this direction. There's a possibility that something might happen in the employment status of one Mueller. Look, I think there's continuing to have people around him who are talking him into keeping him, and we will just have to see, because he is a moment-to-moment leader.
But can you imagine? I mean, obviously, the Ken Starr investigation started off as an investigation into a land deal and ended up with focusing on President Clinton having perjured himself and suborn perjury, et cetera, about lying about an affair. I mean, that's one of the issues that people have with special counsels and then special prosecutors.
Right. So as we've all been in this town long enough to remember that's exactly the reason the independent counsel statute was demolished, was taken impounded with a hammer and thrown into the trash because of these wide-ranging, freelancing, just kind of never-ending investigations. And I think that's what we're seeing here.
All right, everyone, stick around. We got a lot more to talk about, especially about the breaking news, new details about the Access Hollywood tape, and the raid of Michael Cohen's hotel room, office, and home. Stay with us.